One thing is clear today. We're about to take back Texas. To the billionaires who have taken over our state and taken over our country, your unchecked power is coming to an end. Your days dividing working people are numbered. To the people of Texas, no matter how you voted in the primary, this election is our chance to take power back for ourselves and our communities. We're done being divided. We're done being played. We're done being pitted against each other. That old politics is dying, and a new politics is being born through all of us.
Welcome back. I'm Mike.
I'm Jared.
And happy Pride. And since the show's a little bit more oppo-minded, we're going to celebrate by taking a look at how MAGA uses the LGBTQ community to create political attacks on this one. And also kind of review some of the stuff that's been happening around Pride this year. If you like this episode, be sure to check out last week's premium episode where we covered the embattled campaign of Graham Plattner, who is running for U.S. Senate in the state of Maine and hoping to dethrone Susan Collins. I recommend that you go to our Patreon and check that one out.
In terms of anti-queer attacks, one case stands out, particularly that of James Talarico, the Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate, who will face off against Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton in November. Current polling suggests the race is likely to be a close one, and it could help determine whether Democrats are able to take the U.S. Senate in the midterms this year. And unlike the U.S. House, Republicans can't gerrymander their congressional districts to fend off these sorts of challengers, which makes races like these especially threatening to them. So before we kind of unpack the attacks on James Talarico, let's get into a little bit of who he is for people who haven't heard of him before. He was born in Round Rock, Texas in 1989. That's North Austin, well-to-do place. He's about 2 years younger than the current youngest member of the U.S. Senate, Georgia's own Jon Ossoff. And he grew up in a religious household. His maternal grandfather was a Baptist minister. He attended school in Texas and later would go to Harvard. Went on to teach middle school English in San Antonio and work as an executive director at an educational nonprofit.
Talarico was elected to the Texas House in 2018. He was 29 years old, making him the youngest member of the state legislature at that time. He focused on issues related to child development and education. He has type 1 diabetes, and one of the laws he passed capped insulin copays and authorized the import of lower-cost prescription drugs from Canada. In 2021, he had to move his campaign to Austin, Texas, after he said Texas Republicans gerrymandered him out of his district in Round Rock.
Last year, James Talarico announced he was running for U.S. Senate in Texas. He's running a progressive campaign. He's focused on issues surrounding the economy and social justice, but the campaign is kind of dressed in this style of the quote-unquote common sense moderate Democrat. But there are a few things that separate him from the pack of candidates who are running on platforms like these this fall.
Yeah, he centers his Christian faith in his campaign messaging and cites it to directly push back on Republican Party messaging to evangelicals. This has been a really prickly issue for the GOP, having rallied behind Trump, a man who has repeatedly expressed doubts he will be led into heaven when he dies. Contrast that with Senator Lindsey Graham saying Trump isn't far behind God.
So I want to start with a bunch of thank yous. I want to thank the big guy, God. Trump comes later. Mr. President, you're not far behind God, but we're going to start with him.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. That was like a jump scare because I didn't know that was in the doc. Thank you, Jared. Here's an example of Talarico using his faith to argue in favor of abortion and LGBTQ plus equality.
If we're looking at the last 40, 50 years, the religious right has made a concerted effort to make homosexuality and abortion the two biggest issues for Christians. And, the Southern Baptist Convention was pro-choice until the late 1970s. So this idea that to be a Christian means you have to be anti-gay and anti-abortion, there really is no historical, theological, biblical basis for that opinion.
Well, when was abortion even invented?
Well, there was certainly abortions in the ancient world. There's some, and again, I haven't studied this enough to say this definitively, but there are interpretations of certain passages from the Torah where some folks will even say that there is some subtle instructions for how to perform an abortion in the ancient world, certain things to drink, things like that. The point is that this idea that there is a set Christian orthodoxy on the issue of abortion is just not rooted in Scripture.
The other voice you heard in that clip was Joe Rogan, baby. #1 podcaster in the world. God help us all.
I can see why this is so popular, the Joe Rogan show.
James Talarico went on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan later said in that episode he thinks James Talarico should, quote, run for president. So he won over Joe Rogan, I guess. But Talarico's engaged heavily with conservative media, non-traditional media. Another example of this is when he sat down for one of those Jubilee surrounded videos.
Yeah.
He spent hours talking to Texas voters who said they were undecided, including Republicans, Democrats, so on.
So he's tried to spin GOP messaging around masculinity and machismo on its head. Here's an example of him doing that.
There's been a lot of talk in this race about what it means to be a real man. And recently on the campaign trail, I told the story of my adoptive dad, the man who gave me his last name, the man who raised me as his own. Every Saturday morning, Mark Talarico would mow our lawn. Whether it was rain or shine, whether he wanted to or not, he insisted on mowing our lawn himself. And then without anyone asking him to, he would go next door and mow our neighbor's lawn because our neighbor was elderly. She was a widow. And my dad never talked about it. He just did it because that's what a man does. A man takes responsibility. A man upholds his commitments to his family and his neighbors. A man does what's right even when no one is watching. And here's what real men don't do. They don't lie and cheat their way through life. They don't sell their soul to the highest bidder. They don't steal from other people in order to enrich themselves. And so I've said before, and I will keep saying, that real men serve others. Weak men serve themselves. And so I welcome this debate about what it means to be a man. And I don't think Ken Paxton or Ted Cruz are in a position to tell anybody what a real man is.
So compared to many Republican politicians in Texas, Talarico's public presence stands out as being more gentle, more caring. He's softer spoken. He may wear the cowboy boots. He may quote the Bible, but he falls well short of the Texas, like, I love my gun and I drive my pickup truck down to the barbecue joint to pick up some broads, like stereotype that many people might think of.
Are you tapping into some Arkansas something there?
I was born in Texas. My dad lives there.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You were. That's right. That slipped my mind for a second.
My dad lives outside of Austin, so I'm very familiar with this area.
So that barbecue song, everyone, is authentic. In any case, he defeated Jasmine Crockett in the Democratic primary in March, and he's now set off to face against Republican candidate Ken Paxton.
Ken Paxton is a comically corrupt figure. His career's been marked with scandals surrounding allegations of corruption, bribery, fraud. In 2023, the Republican-led House in Texas impeached him over accusations that he abused his office to help a major donor. But then Trump stepped in and pressured the Texas Senate, which let him off the hook and acquitted him of those charges. This year, Ken Paxton handily ousted incumbent Senator John Cornyn in the primary after Trump endorsed him and complained that John Cornyn had been very disloyal to him, which is something I have a hard time understanding, considering the fact that John Cornyn has like broken his back to try to placate Trump, and has, his campaign website was like, I've voted with Trump 99% of the time. Look what that got him. Nothing.
So that's a little bit about James Talarico and why we're talking about him. Let's get into how the GOP is trying to bring his campaign down. For that, we brought on Parker Molloy. She authors the award-winning media criticism, culture, and politics newsletter, The Present Age. Everyone needs to go subscribe to that right now if they haven't already. We'll put a link in the episode description, and there you go. I'm a big fan of Parker for a long time, and she's been on the show. The show has evolved significantly. The mics have gotten better. We're using Riverside now since then. She was one of our first guests, actually, when we rebooted last year. Welcome, Parker.
Hello. Yes, I noticed it's so much fancier. You've got not only Riverside, but like when I opened Riverside, there's like a nice like burnt orange kind of background, and it goes with the logo. It's perfect. It's great.
Thank you. In this world where the media is just like rotting and disappearing, we take some pride in building something separate from it.
Not the algae filled reflecting pool.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. I just saw that today. I saw people taking souvenirs from it.
Have you seen the photos of the guy that was hired to do it? He looks like a cartoon villain.
Yeah,
it's great.
He looks like who was the wrestler Paul Bearer.
Oh, I remember Paul Bearer was
WWE.
That's the Undertaker's.
Undertaker's
Yeah,
like
he's
manager
like his
dude
sidekick
or whatever.
Yeah, he was a very active manager.
That's what the guy who did the reflecting pool looks like.
But the best part of the whole thing is that the company, that was contracted to do it is called like Green Water.
Perfect.
So
yeah.
So they got exactly what they bought.
I mean, you get what you pay for. I saw a video of that being like taking water from it and pouring it into a drain, and it looked just like Ecto Cooler, the high C drink from.
Oh, I remember
the
that.
early 90s.
Yeah, I remember.
I've long felt that Mountain Dew doesn't get, it gets a disproportionate amount of hate.
I think they branched out too much. You've got like 80 different Mountain Dew flavors now. Too many. Should have stopped with Baja Blast.
The progressive media critic hates innovation, hates experimentation. All right.
I had one that was flavored after those trolley gummies. Not good. Do not recommend. Don't get it. It's too sweet.
My mouth hurts just thinking about it.
I know. It's like my teeth. I could feel all of my teeth.
Mike, save us. Get us back on track.
Yeah, back on track.
So since it started to become clear that Talarico posed a real threat to Republicans as they fight to maintain their slim majority in the U.S. Senate, the GOP has invested heavily in attacking Talarico, as you would expect. And many lines of attack they've run with have so far been just plainly homophobic. I don't know. There's no other way to describe it. When we first encountered it, I guess, about a month ago or so, we started to see this pattern. There were a few posts, and then it became a much bigger phenomenon. They're just trying to portray him as effeminate, intimate that he may be a closeted gay man, claim that he's a vegan. And I've also seen people say he's like the first like transgender like Senate candidate and things like that too, which is, quite frankly, bizarre.
Yeah, the vegan one's especially confusing to me because there's no less than like 100 million gazillion photos of him sinking his teeth into like a turkey leg.
Yeah. I jotted down some of the nicknames that they were calling him. You got Tofu Talarico, James Talafrico.
That's almost quaint, the Tofu Talarico. It's like, that almost doesn't bother me. That's like, that's a state of play I'd hope we can achieve one day in this country where it's just like, oh, he's the tofu guy. That's like,
tofu guy.
It's much better than like calling him trans to try to.
Yeah, like six gender Jimmy.
Gender Jimmy.
But yeah,
that's me.
But it's
that's me after 4 beers.
But yeah, Like his campaign liked Talarico enough to actually start selling shirts with that on it and say like, I'm a Talarico.
It takes like a kind of a stodgy candidate. He's in many ways, there's something sort of dry about Talarico. And if you call him Talarico, it might even help.
I know. But yeah, so you had Stephen Miller calling him the first transgender Senate candidate. And then when he went on TV, Stephen Miller said he's clearly transitioning into a female, which Stephen Miller, more woke than we thought, thinks that it's possible to transition into a female. That puts him to the left of the federal government.
Well, the Miller post was kind of a big deal because the response to it went very viral. Like he posted something like, the Democrats made history in Texas by nominating the first transgender Senate candidate, and then the Democratic Party's account responded, "Shut up, you ugly fuck."
Perfect.
I had no problems with that post.
Yeah, no, that was fine. That was because what are you going to respond? No, he's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you just have to tell these people off sometimes, I think. But yeah, Stephen Miller was saying when his jokes are so bad. He said that when Talarico goes in for a blood test, when he gets a physical, blood doesn't come out, soy milk comes out.
I'm surprised we're still doing the soy boy thing in 2026.
Like,
I'm getting
who drinks soy milk?
I'm getting PTSD from 2019.
Oat milk, coconut milk. Like, we have options, people.
So, what Stephen Miller posted, like his sort of punchlines about Talarico are so dumb and obviously come from a place of bigotry. It's Stephen Miller after all. But this is kind of the mainstream message that Republicans have on Talarico.
Yeah.
It's basically a version of, look at this sissy, he's gay, maybe he's transgender. Well, whatever the case, he's definitely part of the gay agenda or something, you know?
I do love the fact that, they were like, he says he has a girlfriend, but we've never seen her. And then, here he is with this super hot girlfriend. Like a bunch of photos. It's like, she just wasn't in the public spotlight because she's dating a member of the Texas legislature.
Yeah. I mean, but it also forces you to argue on very stupid grounds and also bigoted grounds, because what difference would it make if he were gay? If he were, a fabulous senator, what difference would it make if he were a she, right? Like, what difference would that make?
Yeah.
If he were great. And it forces you to argue these really stupid things and say hey, actually, here's a picture of my girlfriend. And also here's a picture of me chomping down on some sort of pig leg or whatever at the county state fair.
Yeah. When you're doing that, you're not talking about policy. You're not talking about Ken Paxton's many, many scandals. You're not talking about him letting that pedophile out of prison. It's you're just working on Republican grounds. They're very, very good at that, of getting people to argue on their terms. And I kind of noticed this, over the recent UFC fight on the White House lawn, when the guy won and then he called Michelle Obama a man.
I've got a clip of that real quick.
And lastly, Michelle Obama is a man. Am I right, America?
She's a man, baby.
Dude sounds like he's orgasming when he says it, which is really some life he's leading.
Well, also, I mean, just on that, I mean, well, first off, I want to point out that the person he's talking to is Joe Rogan again. Joe Rogan just popping up everywhere.
Can't get rid of this guy.
After he won a fight in, I think it was January, during the post-fight interview thing, same thing. He called WNBA star Brittany Griner. Remember, she was imprisoned in Russia for bringing a vape pen for a while. Called her a man. So this is just a thing this guy does. But one thing I gotta say, as a trans person, because when these guys say Michelle Obama is a man, what they're saying is that she's secretly a trans woman, that she's that's what they're trying to articulate.
It's the same transvestigate logic. They're in your midst.
Yeah.
They're out there.
Yeah, which on one hand, as a trans woman, super okay with them thinking that like the most beautiful women in the world are trans. Like I saw something a few years back when the Barbie movie came out. There was like people saying that like Margot Robbie was trans. They're like, look at this, and I'm just like, this is, you know what, this is fine actually. If you think if I'm fine being lumped into that.
I would love to be in the same,
Yeah,
same
but
group as these women.
with the response from like Democrats and liberals, like to the Michelle Obama's a man thing, which is something that's like they've been saying about her for like a decade at this point. It's always a little bit like, okay, guys. Like, people will be like, how could you possibly accuse her of that? The worst thing you could call someone. Oh my God. You know, you can't call, she's not one of those freaks, you know, like that sort of thing. It's like, all right, guys, all right, tone it down. It's okay. It's, you know, but yes, you should defend her because these attacks are rooted in racism and sexism. But like, you know, maybe it wouldn't be so bad if she was trans. It would be fine, you know. And it's the same thing with like Talarico, you know, like it should be fine. It was fine, you know, would be fine if he was trans because, you know, that's just how some people are.
Yeah.
But these attacks that they keep lobbing at him, I'm a little worried that they're maybe starting to work in a weird way because Talarico has a very long history of saying really compassionate, positive things about gay people and trans people, and it's been great. But with all of these attacks, he's kind of started to try to like triangulate his way out of it.
Doesn't want to sound too pink.
Yeah, well, exactly. And so like Paxton accused him of wanting surgery on children because they love that line. And Talarico's like, no, I am opposed to surgery for trans kids or whatever. You know, like I don't know his exact wording, but it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, on the face of it, like it's a fine position. But when Republicans say surgery on children, they're not just talking about like transition related surgeries. They're talking about banning surgeries. They're talking about banning hormone replacement therapy. They're talking about banning puberty blockers. They're talking about banning social, you know, like social transitioning where it's just you go by a different name. And that's one thing I wish people understood, that when you start playing on their ground, same thing with whenever the argument about trans people in sports comes up. It's like once you start accepting the premise of their arguments, you end up in a really weird spot. And after Talarico kind of said the thing about, well, actually, no, I oppose surgery for trans minors, Paxton came back out and was just like, this is just the latest example of Talarico masquerading as a moderate when the truth is he's the most radical Democrat to ever run statewide in Texas history. I don't think that's true. I think that Beto O'Rourke was more radical when he was like, hell yeah, I'm taking your AR-15s.
Yeah.
Like, that's a pretty bold thing to say in Texas. But Talarico, then he explained why, because he had voted against the Texas bill that would ban medical care for trans youth entirely. And he said he voted against it because it did more than ban gender reassignment surgeries for minors. Okay, good. And he goes, it stripped critical health care away from Texas children suffering from rare genetic diseases that have nothing to do with being transgender. And it's like, what? Because at the time, Talarico had said, when he voted against it, he said, this bill is not about science or medicine and certainly not about keeping kids safe. I think this is about discriminating against people who are transgender, which is true.
Yeah.
So right there, he's at odds with his own past statements on this. Talk about how this would have, technically affected people who aren't trans too. And it's like, I don't know, man, you're kind of digging a hole. You should probably just, transphobes are going to vote, like anyone who is anti-trans and that is going to influence who they vote for, they're going to vote for Paxton. Like that's just no question about it.
I also think it just doesn't do anything to stop the attacks. If you placate them, they don't stop. Like, spinning back the clock, I've got a clip here. After news reports came out that Talarico had previously dated a Latina baddie, implying that he, as a man, dating a hot woman, probably not gay, or at least not entirely. I don't care.
He can be bi.
Either way. But here's what Representative Brandon Gill, a carpetbagger who only has his office because his father-in-law is Dinesh fucking D'Souza. Here's what he had to say.
And I wouldn't even say it's Beto O'Rourke 2.0, because this is a much more effeminate version of Beto O'Rourke. This is somebody who is, talked about having a meatless campaign, somebody who is really obsessed with children, somebody who I don't think is normal or connects with the people of Texas in any way. So I think it's far worse for Democrats than Beto 2.0. But we go through this every cycle where Democrats talk about, we're going to flip Texas blue. We're going to take Texas back from the Republicans, and it never works because they are so out of touch with the way Texans think. And this is just another example of this. This is, I think of James Talarico as a barely straight version of Pete Buttigieg. People in Washington love him, but he doesn't work with the rest of the country.
A barely straight version of Pete Buttigieg.
Also, while he was doing that, I came up with a great nickname for Talarico that the Republicans can and should use. It's Beta O'Rourke.
Oh my God! No, don't
why are they not calling him?
Don't say that. Don't, because it's going to catch Beta.
It's good, right? It's
very good
to say, but it's.
You didn't hear our premium episode on Graham Plattner, which is kind of like, they kind of accent one another. We did them back to back on purpose. But towards the end of it, there were people who had picked up the attack on Plattner that is, quite frankly, fair game, is that they try to say he's weird. And they say that he's the Democrats are the party of weird. And they do that over here too. And it seems like they have isolated what was an effective and abandoned tactic against Trump in 2024 and started to use it against the Democrats. I think the difference with Plattner, you can point to like a number of things that seem weird, to put it mildly, as we covered. But in this case, they really have to drum it up. And the way they're doing it is they're like, we've got to gay this guy. And if he's not gay, then he's barely straight.
Well, and there are a bunch of posts like right after Talarico won the nomination. Republicans just started like the official Republican account, the RNC research account, posts like pictures of him looking kind of weird and just saying like, hide your kids, basically just implying that he was a pedophile.
Right. Did you see that the AI ad?
Yeah, where he's in like a weird like maid outfit or something. I don't know what that was.
Yeah. This was posted by a Daily Caller reporter on June 9th.
Reporter. She clarified, Jared, that she was reporting when she posted it.
I'm just reporting by posting an advertisement online. This was from a Trump-aligned org called Citizens for Sanity. They made a 6-figure ad buy for what you're about to hear. And it's a 15-second video clip, AI-generated James Talarico singing a trans kids rendition of the tune Favorite Things from Mary Poppins.
Boys in white dresses with blue satin sashes, girls dust with hormones till they grow mustaches, changing the gender of all your offspring. These are a few of my favorite things.
Based. That's cool.
At least they let him hit that note at the end.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, AI Talarico's not a bad singer. I mean,
I feel like these people are taking in like 90% more AI than we do. AI and it's just like it must be like completely cooking their brains.
If I turned on the TV and I saw an AI generated video with AI generated singing at me about trans people, I would think that the people who paid for the ad, who spent 6 figures on this ad, like that they were the weird ones, but I don't know. That's what they're running on. And I mean, but to the point that was made in that Brandon Gill video, which Gill, every time he's on camera, he looks so sweaty. It's something else.
So the Michael Tracy effect.
Yeah, but he has a point about how Democrats do kind of get themselves like amped up, being like, "We're taking Texas, Blexus is happening, blue Texas," and it just doesn't happen. But I don't know, maybe Talarico's got a shot. I think it's going to be close, similar to how when Beto ran against Ted Cruz was close. You know, he came within like 2 points, and like Ted Cruz had won the previous time by like 10 points. And it's like, that's progress, but at the same time, close doesn't really count.
Despite these attacks, according to polls at the time we were recording, Talarico's still favored to beat Ken Paxton. A lot could change. I mean, anything could change between now and November. But the GOP's been deploying this kind of playbook over the last few cycles more aggressively. The first time I saw it really pronounced was in 2022 midterms, came up again in 2024. They're just running really, really hard on specifically anti-trans issues.
Yeah.
And within that, the question of trans women competing in sports at the high school or college level. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, Parker. Does this actually work out for them? My read of it is that it's been kind of inconclusive. It doesn't seem like it's really moved the needle in a way where I felt like they won this election because this.
Right.
Right.
It's one of those things where I think it's been these attacks have been really successful in shifting public opinion. I think these attacks have been successful in shifting how people view, because most people don't know a trans person. So everything they know about trans people is what they see on TV or what they read online or, are told by politicians. So when everything is negative about trans people and they're like, look at these freaks, they find the strangest looking trans person they can find. And they're like, look at this person who has a mustache and boobs and a beard and what the hell, it's like, which there's nothing wrong with looking like that, but that's not like necessarily like your average trans person. The Kamala stands for they, them. It was everywhere. And it made watching sports before the 2024 election not so fun. I'll say that much. But yeah, it's kind of inconclusive. It's one of those things like I don't know, like we could probably all agree that like Kamala Harris was probably just going to lose that election. Like it was
I felt so.
I don't think she ran a great campaign, but she could have run a great campaign, and I think she still would have lost by similar margins because people were, upset about the economy, inflation. Things didn't seem to be getting better,
and also
even if on paper they were.
The mystery around Biden and his his mental disappearance. I think that was like even bigger than the economy.
Yeah, it's, so it's like, so there's all this stuff happening, and 4 years gave people a lot of time to kind of like forget about how bad Trump was. I mean, just the other day, here in Chicago, they opened the Obama Center, and George W. Bush was there, and I saw all sorts of people being like, say what you will about George W. Bush, but at least he didn't start a fascist police state. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, people forget these things, and it's usually kind of harmless because once they're in the past, they're in the past. But Trump came back.
Yeah.
And people had already started kind of revising how they looked at the Trump era, and they saw him as maybe a victim of,
Well, I think people are also excited by the outlaw nature of Trump at that point too. Like it was like he was coming back he's coming back for revenge, and like Americans like stupid stories like that in a very simple, idiotic way.
I do not think that the trans ad or trans issues is what caused Kamala Harris to lose in 2024. I just don't see that as something that happened. However, you have groups like Third Way, you have groups like Searchlight, Majority Democrats. These groups that are these kind of centrist, where their whole thing is Democrats need to move to the right, and constantly saying that over and
Clinton
over and
triangulation.
over. Yeah, and they criticize the groups, stuff like that, and I think they're just kind of sick of they don't care about trans people, and so they use this as kind of an excuse to be like, yeah, maybe trans people are the reason that that we lost the election. And I saw it in 2020. It was the morning after the election. It still hadn't been called, obviously, and Claire McCaskill was on MSNBC, and she was just like, she was already ready to be like, Trump won re-election. So she was just like, and we got to deal with these trans people. And, and I think that turns off some voters. And yeah, you're just kind of reaching for something and you're blaming trans people for an election that you ended up winning. But we have evidence that Democratic candidates turning their backs on trans people doesn't necessarily help them win. Colin Allred did it in Texas in 2024. He ran an ad that was like, I do not support boys and girls sports, and he still lost. He still got crushed.
Well, I think you're missing one thing though, which is, that to add on this is like, yes, I don't think it caused her to lose, but I think it theoretically wouldn't it even have even less of an impact now because yes, obviously real things were happening during the Biden years and Gaza. That was a big one. But in general, as always the case when Trump comes to town, like everything goes haywire and there's just all kinds of new insane problems. Now it's like, I mean, wouldn't it be more difficult to fixate on transgender people in this current environment where they're, people are facing economic threats and they're facing all kinds of threats of their, like their worries about their children's future. We just got out of a war that was a debacle. I mean, hopefully it would be less effective for that reason. Like who has time to worry about it?
Well, and that's the thing. And, another candidate who tried to do the, like, I'm going to kind of throw trans people under the bus a little bit was Sherrod Brown in Ohio. And he lost. He's running again. He hasn't said anything about trans stuff this time. I hope he continues to do that. But yeah, I time and time again, people have said that they think that there's too much attention to trans issues, which I agree. There is too much attention. There's way too much attention. You're talking about like 1% of the population, and you're trying to micromanage how we can live. However, I think that a lot of people incorrectly believe that, well, we're talking about trans stuff because of trans people and because of Democrats for defending trans people. Like, it just doesn't click with a decent portion of the public that the only reason that we're talking about trans issues all the time is because Republicans are constantly bringing them up.
Yeah, I mean, that it really started to come up, like, what would you say, like 5 years ago? I feel like 2022 is kind of the peak of it. Is there like a point that sticks in your mind?
So 2020, I think, was when it really started. Like, that's where we kind of saw the seeds of this, because in 2020, things were shut down because of COVID. The economy was terrible. People were losing jobs. And, red states were kind of like, okay, what can we need to do something. We need to take some actions. People are mad at us. Let's try to pass some laws banning trans people from sports. And they would always flag these laws, like, because usually in state governments, there's like a way to make it so a law, instead of going into effect like the following year, like goes into effect immediately because it's an emergency. And that's exactly what they would do. They would say, we need to pass this bill banning trans students from using the correct locker rooms or restrooms and banning them from sports. And it needs to go into effect immediately. And they would hold these sessions, and it was just throwing red meat to the base. In a time when, like, these legislators weren't doing their jobs. They weren't fighting for, people who were really hurting at that time. So they had to do something. And so they started attacking trans rights, which is extra funny because at the time, no schools were actually playing sports. Like, there were no school sports to speak of, and like everyone's like, we have to focus on this right now. And we kind of saw it happen just the other day, earlier this week, when right after the the agreement with Iran to end the war or something was kind of in the news, you saw the FTC announced that it was going to be going after the World Professional Association of Transgender Health, WPATH, which is like the organization that they create the standards of care for trans people. And they're just kind of, they're like any medical organization. But the FTC is going after them, being like, you're selling people on a lie that they can change sex, and they can't. And we're going to shut you down for false advertising. It's like, cool. I'm glad that there were a bunch of dudes like, who's that guy? Matt Stoller, who was like, actually, I think Trump's FTC is going to keep the same antitrust, approach that Lena Khan had during Biden. It's like, no, they're going to use it as a weapon to attack trans people.
That guy's easy though.
We got to figure out how to sell stuff to him. He's a sucker.
But the whole thing there, like, if the FTC succeeds, that'll be disastrous for not just trans kids, but trans adults.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would make my life harder. I would not like it. I would not appreciate it. But I don't think it's any coincidence that this came up the same week that it's like, oh, the Trump administration just pissed everyone off on all sides of things with, how he's ending the war in Iran. So he's got to throw them something. And so again, they go after trans people. And again, people think that there's too much focus on this, but I don't think they realize that the focus is coming almost entirely from Republicans. Democrats do not talk about trans issues. They really avoid it. Like even getting like seeing like a politician post like a single like on Trans Day of Visibility, like, oh, cool, they acknowledge trans people exist. That's cool. The official Democratic Party account did that. And it's like, it kind of reminded me of that scene in The Office where Dwight makes a thing that just like a banner that just says, "It is your birthday." And it's like, it's very like plain and boring. And they had a graphic that was just kind of sad that was like, trans people, we see you. It was like,
yeah.
Cool, thanks. But even that's like the extent of what they'll do to talk about trans issues. You can't get them to really dig in on this and try to advance trans issues, and the way that it's often talked about is people will be like, progress takes time, and you have to give Democrats time to move things. They're just not going as fast as you want. But the issue isn't progress. The issue is that rights have been rapidly deteriorating because of Republican attacks. And I think because Democrats won't just flat out stand up to Republicans and tell them to knock it off, tell them to stop being weird about like strangers' genitals, I think it just encourages them. And that's what you kind of saw with Talarico, with this like, no, it did more than ban gender reassignment surgery for minors. It did this other stuff. And they're just like, boom, you're feeding the machine, and they're just going to keep going. There's an easy way to do this. And it's just that in Texas, Talarico could go, I think medical decisions should be between a parent and their child and the doctor. And because that is where it should be. The government shouldn't be telling you what should or shouldn't be done. Kind of like co-opt the parental rights language a little bit, like lean into it that way. Like that's how he could respond to this stuff. Kamala Harris could have been like, yeah, I support trans people. Of course I do, because I support all people. And they want you focused on this one group. I want to make life better for everyone. Like there's a way to handle these things that aren't particularly controversial, I don't think.
Yeah.
But we kind of live in this like weird world now where politicians just straight up don't want to tell you what their stances on anything are.
Yes.
I've been noticing that more during like primaries of like candidates just straight up not having issues pages on their websites.
We're just mailing it in.
Yeah, it's like vote for me because of vibes.
I wanted to bring up something before we went on. We spoke briefly about how 2022 was a really crazy time for Pride. It's it's Pride now again. Now we're years removed from that. For people who don't remember, there was just like a lot of people storming. Like it was like Proud Boys storming drag time story hour, whatever it was.
People destroying Target
displays. Yeah, Target was a big one. I did a lot of stuff. Yeah, people got really mad at Target. In addition to that, there were the Patriot Front came in U-Hauls to the Coeur d'Alene Pride event. I did some reporting out of Coeur d'Alene. I have firsthand say that is, it makes me sad to think of somebody went on Target that adorable Pride in Coeur d'Alene. It's like the cutest, most wonderful one, and everybody should go there and do it sometime. But while they were creating these conditions in which trans people became like villains and so forth, they used a lot of influencers, and we wanted to ask you a few questions about like the state of play there over these sort of anti-trans influencers, right, Jared? Riley Gaines, who we learned from important reporting from Madeline Peltz, doesn't bathe apparently. She was the swimmer who placed 5th and lost to a trans person, and then
tied with the trans person.
She tied. Is that what it was? I mean, that's gonna haunt her forever. Anyway, the unwashed, big-eyed Riley Gaines, who gets brought out all the time to just basically say, I'm a woman from birth, and I don't know what else she does other than that. And then there was Libs of TikTok, who was on what seemed like a generational run in 2022. She's really a very disturbed individual. I just want to interject. We at some point we need to do one of our biographical episodes on her. But like, man, she's a real difficult one. I mean, very obsessed. And then there's like a whole crowd of detransitioners who got like elevated. And my favorite that I like to bring up is this person, Maya Poet, who I'm glad you laughed.
I'm familiar.
You're familiar with Maya Poet?
I can see it on Parker's face. Just like, oh yeah.
I will sometimes just send people in my life like Maya Poet posts where there'd be like, she'll like for some reason like do a picture. She's like like her main attributes is that she had transitioned into being male, and then she's detransitioned now, and then she'll take pictures of herself on roller skates. And she's a huge Zionist. That's the other thing she likes to tell everyone, that she's a huge Zionist, and
she's an October 7th survivor.
Oh, that's right. She's October 7th.
And then she survived.
Survived it from like the least dangerous corner of Israel. Anyway, so she'll like take pictures of herself. Where she also, another thing, if people are familiar with this, she went viral for the wrong reason. That was like her most viral moment is a college student took his middle finger and put it in her face at an empty booth that she was doing for TPUSA, totally empty on the campus, and just posted the photograph, and it got like, even in a reactionary X platform, got like 300,000 retweets or something. It was like the most viral thing. But anyway, she'll do these pictures now, like post pictures of herself, and she's like roller skating, and she's like and in a tracksuit or something, and she'd be like, now I'm roller skating and really feeling myself. This is made possible only by me becoming a woman again. It's the best content if you're familiar with her. If you like ironic enjoyment of posts, I recommend Maya Poet.
And just on top of it all, she looks very ridiculous.
Yeah, she looks very
her outfits,
ridiculous.
Like it's like suspenders,
slightly boss-eyed,
and
like
she's a less orange Oompa Loompa.
Yeah. I was gonna say like maybe like a Doctor Who character or something like that. Like, and she's got like a lazy eye, which nothing against lazy eyes, but it adds to the whole vibe.
Yes, we're gonna call back to her in the future. I'm glad she's been introduced now because I do love Maya Poet.
Yeah. She like many of the big name detransitioners, even though again there's only like 4 or 5 of them.
Not like, many people.
Anti-trans people keep talking about how there's going to be all these detransitioners, and like there's a lot of money to be made if you are a detransitioner who will work tirelessly to try to take away rights from trans people. It's like there's money out there. There just aren't that many people who actually are detransitioners. But this thing about this Maya Poet woman is like, she never like medically transitioned. She only socially transitioned. And
she transitioned into being a TPUSA personality.
Yeah, it's like her transition was like, I cut my hair short. And I wore a binder for a little bit, which, again, totally fine thing to do. But it doesn't quite put you in the same like mindset as like, oh, a trans person who has dealt with this for tens of years and dealt with the medical system and saw all these roadblocks that are here and there. It's like, no, it's just someone who's just like, wasn't for me, therefore it should be for no one. Like that's kind of their thing. There's her, there's this Chloe Cole woman who is another one.
Okay. Yeah,
But
I've seen that one.
Yeah, she's the one who they really like, they fly her around. She makes like six figures talking about why being trans should be illegal, basically. And like these people, they don't really represent, like, I don't know. I've seen people who detransition. Most of them are totally chill. They're just like, yeah, figured out more about myself and just realized it wasn't for me, or started taking hormones and it didn't make me feel better. It made me feel worse, which made me reevaluate how I felt, and so I've, did something different. Like, that's a normal thing. It's normal to be like, hey, I'm trying to figure out who I am and what I am, and I'm going to explore this, and maybe I've got it right, maybe I don't. Only one way to find out. Same thing with anything in life. It's like you just do. But yeah, these detransitioners, they get pulled out to do this, to basically be like, it wasn't for me, therefore it should be for nobody.
Well, what about these other like anti-LGBTQ influencers that I mentioned, like these libs of TikTok and these type of figures?
Mhm.
It does seem to me, and I think Jared, you hold this view as well, that they've fallen off. It doesn't mean that they don't get engagement, but it just doesn't seem to have the kind of juice that it did in 2022. So it seems like a weird predicament where the trans community is under more threat than perhaps 5 to 10 years ago, but the people who brought us to this place are not necessarily getting the same kind of attention that they did when that damage was being done.
Yeah, which is an interesting like thing, because, and I think part of it is that they've been successful. Libs of TikTok, for example, let's talk about her. It's like she would post videos of like, oh, I'm a trans teacher and I'm happy to teach at my school, whatever. And she'd be like, this teacher is telling students to be trans and they had a pride flag in their room and this shouldn't happen. And it's like, I think a lot of trans people now are a lot more cautious about what they put on the internet. Like things that it's impossible to be, to really post things about being trans without getting like some really horrible feedback. For instance, I was on Threads, the gas leak app.
Nice.
Where there was this trans woman who posted a photo of her back tattoo that she has. She has like wings tattooed on her back. It's a big tattoo. It's a normal photo. It says nothing about her being trans in the post, but she just wrote, "Do you like my fairy wings tattoo?" And the first response was from an account that wrote, "Trans rights are as real as fairies. Hope someone carves the flesh off your back."
Jeez.
Like that's something I just saw on the internet today, and it's
Dear
not
Lord.
even like that's just life now. So it's like, so I think a lot of this is like, yeah, I think a lot of this is like, yeah, the world's gotten so hostile that a lot of trans people don't post day in the life videos online. They don't post happy stuff. They aren't being hired as teachers. They're,
Right.
like there's just less content there. Companies aren't doing cringy but well-meaning things, which, to go back to Talarico, when he was trying to make his point about how God is beyond gender, where he said, well, actually, there are 6 genders. For a while, I thought that Trump had just misheard him saying cisgender, but apparently Talarico did say 6 genders.
Yeah, he had to one up Joe Biden saying that there's at least 3.
king.
Best response I've ever heard to that question.
Don't play games with me, kid. And then he just moves on. It's like, it was great. But so like Talarico saying like, oh, there's 6 genders, and then he starts talking about like intersex conditions. And it's one of those things where it's like, no trans person has ever asked any ally to be like, yes, tell them there are 6 genders, or tell them there are infinite genders, whatever. Like, no one asks for this, but like well-meaning allies will like sometimes do something where it's like, your heart's in the right place. It's cool. So it's like, so there's not as much of that anymore. There's not as much of this like kind of well-meaning but kind of cringe stuff happening. You know, people do introducing themselves with pronouns when they don't need, you know, Kamala Harris being like, I'm Kamala Harris, she, her. It's like, that's not necessary. We know who you are. You are the vice president, you know, like stuff like that. So I think that is part of it. And I think that another thing that is part of it is that like libs of TikTok isn't really necessary anymore. The federal government is libs of TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, she's basically like a unofficial state actor.
Yeah,
at this point.
And this is the same thing that you know, I've seen reports about how web traffic to a bunch of like conservative websites has been down. You know, and setting aside the fact that like web traffic to a lot of websites is down. Yeah, it's because mainstream media is getting more conservative, and so it's like, you don't necessarily need to read a conservative website to get your right-wing views. You can read the Washington Post opinion page now instead of reading the Federalist. You know, it's like, it's the same kind of stuff. So it's like the mainstreaming of right-wing content has been not necessarily the greatest thing for right-wing content creators who don't get folded into this more mainstream type of thing.
So with the time we've got left, let's talk about what's been happening during Pride Month 2026. And I want to start us off by playing a clip of Fox News host Jesse Waters serving the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, a slice of something called pickle cake.
It's National Fudge Day for the VP, but I thought it would be too gay. So I did pickle cake instead. I'm not sure if I got it right.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Vice President, and enjoy your pickle cake. Thank you guys. All right, that's it for us, everyone.
What the fuck is pickle cake? I don't know, but one thing I do know is that fudge is certainly gay, and we will not be serving that to the Vice President.
But pickles, not gay, apparently.
I feel like pickle cake's a little bit more erotic.
You know, as far as phallic foods go, pickles kind of up there on the list.
Parker, you play in the fantasy football league I co-host, but I think both of us prefer the great game of baseball, America's pastime.
Yeah.
You're a fan of the Chicago Cubs. I'm a fan of the New York Metropolitans, who are not doing very well this year.
Because they are gay.
The MLB has made its way into the White House story, and it's come because of Pride celebrations, which I feel like are a much bigger thing with baseball than anywhere else because the season is really heating up in June and they play every day, right? So it's basically Pride all month. So if you don't have a Pride night, you're basically making a statement that we don't want that. We don't want to reach out to the LGBTQ population in this city and invite them into the park for a special thing, right? The way we do with so many different things. There's African American Heritage Night or this, that, and the other thing. If you don't do it, you'd be making a statement. So fortunately, a lot of teams have been doing this and doing it more. I know the Mets has been made a very big deal out of Pride Night, and only 2 teams, I believe I have that right. You told me 2 have like these special hats.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's the Giants and the Dodgers, and both cities with San Francisco and Los Angeles with a few gay people. I've heard. I hear that there are a few
smidge
fudge capitals of the U.S. I've heard
some of the players on the Giants wrote Bible quotes on their hats as a way of protesting
Sure
this.
did.
And they were sanctioned to some degree by MLB. And this has become a huge issue for these folks.
Yeah.
So here is Jesse Waters teeing this issue up for his audience, just for a tone of how Fox has been covering it.
Handed their pitchers rainbow caps for Pride Night. 3 of them traded pride for prayer, writing Bible verses over the rainbow logo. MLB gave them a warning, but their starter isn't scrubbing it off, and he's taking the mound tonight. Happy DEI Thursday.
Anyway, happy DEI Thursday from Jesse Waters. Rob Schneider, a beloved comedian, I think we can all say, probably the greatest of all the SNL graduates. Rob Schneider, the copy guy, wasn't he? Making copies.
Yeah, when I think of Rob Schneider, I think, that's a guy who's made a lot of really great stuff in the last 15 years.
So he kind of wound up in the MAGA sphere by being an anti-vax guy. Do I have that right? And then he became increasingly like Christian, as they all do. It's the same thing with Russell Brand, although Russell Brand's motivations are probably to run away from the litany of things that he has done that we probably haven't even uncovered yet how much of it.
It's like a scene in The Righteous Gemstones where it's like their bank account starts to fill up and they're like, oh Jesus, oh Lord, I've seen what you've done for me. And I say thank you.
Exactly. That's Rob Schneider. He usually wears a little hat. Anyway, he got a big boost on the right when he wrote, "I will pay the fines for any MLB Christian player who wears a Bible verse on their uniform. MLB is anti-Christian." And someone pointed out correctly, can Rob really afford that? Which I thought was quite funny. Anyway, before you weigh in on this, one other thing is Harmeet Dillon, who I feel like she's come up a few times. She is head of the civil rights division. She was Andy Ngo's lawyer for a little bit. And she was also, I always want to bring this up because no one else does. She was running the California GOP when neo-Nazi Patrick Little rose to become the most successful candidate in that field. Pretty tough to do in California. Anyway, she wrote, she issued this statement that included this. MLB has asserted that its warning to the Giants players had absolutely nothing to do with the content and the message, and that it merely is enforcing a policy that prohibits writing on uniforms. Yet, MLB has allowed players to wear uniform patches reading Black Lives Matter. This double standard, under which players may not inscribe Bible verses on hats for one game only, but may wear Black Lives Matter patches for one game only, calls MLB's true motives into question and raises serious concerns about MLB's compliance with Title VII. Employers may not use facially neutral policies as pretext for discrimination. The Trump administration is committed to combating religious discrimination. The Department of Justice will use all available means to hold employers accountable for violating the religious rights of their employers. I have referred this matter to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission for further investigation. What are your thoughts on this, Parker? And also, do you think it's going to have a chilling effect on MLB?
This whole thing has been so frustrating because for years, every once in a while, a player will kind of pop up and be like, I don't want to do the pride stuff. And usually it's like kind of a social media like thing where people talk about it. Some people are like, I support this guy. Other people are like, I don't support this guy. And that's that. It kind of just happens. A few years ago, there was a thing where the Dodgers they were honoring this drag group called like the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. And it made some players uncomfortable.
That's right. But had they been going for a while, that group?
Well, they were getting an award that night from the Dodgers. And the Dodgers responded by panicking and uninviting them, which then
I remember this now, yeah.
Caused it did not fix things, and then they ended up inviting them back, and then it made the people who were already angry even angrier because they need to be angry. But yeah, so the whole thing with this with the Giants players not writing a Bible verse on their hats. The Bible verse was the one about how God, after flooding the earth and, killing everything, was like, hey, sorry about that. Here's a rainbow. This is the sign that I won't do it again. Promise. Like it was the Noah's Ark thing. And it's just kind of a weird verse to kind of like tie in here, but it's something that like Christian groups who are opposed to LGBTQ rights for years have kind of been like, well, actually the rainbow belongs to us and not to you, and you're trying to co-opt it because you are literally the devil. But yeah, it's frustrating because, to see this play out, because I don't know, the whole thing is just very much like there's a drill tweet from 2015 that I think about with this.
Of course there is.
And it's the one where
of course there is.
where he says, the judge orders me to take off my anonymous V mask, and I'm wearing the Joker makeup underneath it. Everyone in the courtroom groans at my shit. That's how I feel about this. It's just like, dude, you could just wear your normal hat and people will be like, huh, he's not wearing a hat. Okay. Like maybe some people have feelings about that, but like you're allowed to. But to write on it, and one dude wrote really big on it, like it's giant letters that made sure that it showed up on TV. It looked ridiculous. And it's just like, come on, guys. Like, if you don't want to participate, don't participate. But one thing that is frustrating to me about this is like, I know that if at any of the other nights that this was happening, if someone did this on Military Appreciation Night, imagine they would Colin Kaepernick that guy out of the league. Like he would just be gone. He would not be a Major League Baseball player anymore. But because it was Pride Night, they're totally fine with it. And it's really frustrating because it's like these things at their core, they're just promotional events. I mean, I open up the Giants website right now and it's advertising K-pop Demon Hunters drone show on Friday, August 14th. Like these are promotional events. The goal is to bring fans in who might not ordinarily go, who might be like, oh, I'm going to go for a fun, for a fun night, a theme night, that sort of thing. It's like, I went to the Cubs game on the mental health night and got a fun little hat for it.
For people who can't see radio, which I hear is like most of the audience, but there are a few of you.
Most people.
But Parker's got a Cubs hat that says on it.
Yes.
What does it say?
It says, take care of your mental health.
That's so good.
And it just says this in all caps, in block letters. It's perfect. And then there's just like a little Cubs logo on the side, but that's it.
Some merch we need to sell.
But yeah, I mean, teams have Star Wars night. Teams have, Irish American Heritage Night. Teams have, all these different groups. The Giants have Faith Night
Irish
later
American
in the
Heritage
season.
Night, also known as Nickel Beer Night.
Yes. But yeah, it's like later in the season, they're having a Faith Night. It was funny. A lot of the responses I saw from people online were like, when's Christian night? It's like literally 2 months from now. But I do worry. I do worry about what's going to happen here because we've seen it happen before in the NHL. I'm not a huge hockey fan, but in the NHL a few years back, a couple players, like teams used to have like cool Pride uniforms that they would wear during like warm-ups. They wouldn't even wear them during the game.
It's also to sell more.
It's to sell more things. It's like that's
to get
the
people
goal.
in these stadiums and sell them a $7 bottle of water.
Exactly. It all comes down to capitalism. Like that's the point. And that's what frustrates me so much is that like people will be like, oh, these companies these teams are trying to impose their value. No, the Giants are owned by a Trump donor. The Cubs have a Pride Night, and like one of the owners of the team used to be the finance director for the RNC. It's like they're conservative. They just love money. It's like that's kind of the goal here. It's just to sell things. And so in hockey, there were a couple players who were just like, I don't want to wear the Pride uniforms during warmups, and teams were like, okay, I guess you don't have to wear Pride uniforms during the warmups. And then they were like, but if I don't wear the Pride uniforms everyone will know that I'm not wearing the pride uniform, but everyone else is, so they'll think I have a problem with it. It's like, well, you do have a problem with it. That's kind of why we're having this conversation. And eventually, what ended up happening was the National Hockey League decided that no teams would be having any like pride jerseys ever again. So I think what's going to happen, if I had to guess, is that the San Francisco Giants are going to look at all of this. They're going to be like, cool, we've pissed off conservatives. We've pissed off LGBTQ people. Let's not do this again. Let's not, and hope that that it's fine, and they'll capitulate. They'll stop doing special hats for Pride Night, and that won't make the right happy. They get angry about the mere existence of a Pride Night, which every team except for the Texas Rangers has. So it's like you're not going to make them happy, but at the same time, you're bending to their will, which was kind of the point of something I recently wrote about the UFC fight at the White House.
Oh yeah, because that had a sponsorship from Bud Light, and a lot of people were like, weren't you guys shooting shotguns into cases of Bud Light like 4 years ago?
Yeah, and it's like, and yeah, there was this whole, you guys are a bunch of hypocrites. It's like, no, but like they got what they wanted from Bud Light. Bud Light has spent the past 3 years trying to get these people back. They signed a like $100 million deal with UFC to become their official like beer in late 2023 after the Dylan Mulvaney controversy earlier that year. And that's kind of how they do things. Conservatives complain about things, they make a scene, they don't let up to the point where businesses, like, even if they businesses, especially ones that don't have like firm beliefs in things, which is pretty much all businesses, are just gonna be like, it's not worth it. That's what Target did when it came to like their pride. Target had been doing pride stuff every June for over a decade when people on the right started freaking out and attacking like store displays and saying we're gonna boycott this.
Yeah, which never made sense to me, because I always understood that like culturally the liberals got Target and the conservatives got Walmart.
Right. I thought that's how it was.
And they're like, no, I want Target too.
They want everything. But yeah,
and mentally I was like, come and take it. Come and take Target.
Get that on that flag. Target. But yeah, so Target kind of scales back and companies start being afraid to, after Bud Light with Dylan Mulvaney, it's like all she did was she was just trans, and they did a partnership deal where she did an ad read on her Instagram story. Like,
they sent her
one promotional beer can that she could hold up.
Yeah, one customized beer can.
Yeah, and that was too much. And so what happened? Well, companies stopped working with trans people.
They were punishing Bud Light for acknowledging that she was interesting or cool enough for this minor thing that they do in so many different ways with so many different people who they don't notice.
Or even just by looking at the situation and being like, trans people, they might want a beer once in a while.
Yeah.
That's
like
crazy.
Companies are going to try to market to different groups. I mean, it's the same stuff they kind of do when they'll see black people in a commercial and be like, oh, these companies, they don't want my business, my white business. It's like, what? Sometimes they're just trying to target like a different group. But yeah, so Bud Light stops working with trans influencers, stops hiring. Companies become scared that they're going to be attacked by Fox News or Congress or the president of the United States. I saw something from Laverne Cox, the trans actress. She said her income is down 90% because like schools that used to book her to give like talks about trans stuff and whatnot, they just don't book her anymore because they're afraid of the Trump administration doing a crackdown on DEI and stuff like that. And so like these are these things that are easy to kind of ignore, to be like, oh, I'm not gonna shed any tears for some actress or some influencer. But it really speaks to like the goal of this, which is to minimize the visibility of trans people in society as a whole, and more broadly, just LGBTQ people as a whole. And I think, and it's usually pretty successful. It worked with the NHL. It worked with Target. It worked with Bud Light. And which sent a message to corporate America more broadly. Yeah, it's kind of sad, but yeah, I imagine that the Giants are going to go, this isn't worth it anymore. From a business perspective, it's not worth it. From a baseball perspective, it's not worth it. They don't want to be talking about this. It's like, I don't know that they necessarily want to be talking about baseball this season either, but that's kind of a separate thing. But I think that the age of pride stuff being mainstream is kind of maybe coming to a close. It's sad, but I think that that's, the whole point of having pride stuff, selling pride merch, for these companies was to make money. But if every time they're going to do something like that, it's going to get them screamed out of existence, then they're not going to do it anymore. And we're going to start to see this stuff fade, because having a pride night or having on-field pride caps for baseball players is going to be seen as a political move. And so they're going to try to avoid appearing political, even though the decision to not do this stuff is also political. Until companies and organizations feel like they can actually say, no, we do stand for this and we're not going to be bullied into backing down, they're going to keep getting bullied into backing down. It's really, the strategy of the right to be victims, constantly be victims is a successful one. It kind of works. There's that other post that was just like, the Republican, the right strategy of lying is kind of fire. And it's like, yeah, of just making things up. It's like, it works. And it's hard to push back against, whether you're James Talarico running for Senate, or you're the San Francisco Giants trying to just manage a business and a terrible baseball team.
Yeah, it's just a classic. The term that comes to mind is just cry bullying.
Yeah.
Right? But I think that's a good place to leave it today. Been talking to Parker Molloy. We will leave a link down in the description. If you haven't already, go check out The Present Age. That's the newsletter she writes. It's a great read.
Sign up, please.
Parker, since you were on the show last year, posting through it has evolved a bit. We've matured and really leaned into our destiny, I think it is, which is to be a music podcast.
Of course.
We're bringing music back. People don't listen to that stuff anymore, music.
Yeah, they don't want you to listen to music, but we're here to tell you it's okay. So we're actually the first podcast about music that's been uploaded online.
The first music podcast.
All of that's to say, what kind of tunes are you rocking with right now?
Yeah, couple things. So I've really been enjoying that really weird Angine de Poitrine group. The one that like the two people from Montreal who wear weird costumes and play microtonal guitars and do a bunch of loops.
Least weird people from Montreal.
There's a lot
Awesome
of debate
stuff
about that, right? Like, there's like a lot of like, is it like, is this legitimate? Did they exploiting viral tendencies in order to do? There's a whole article written about it, wasn't it, Jared? I think you forwarded it to me.
Yeah, I don't care. Like, I just,
I mean, they're one of those bands that like I would love to see them in concert, but the only place that they're playing in Chicago is at Riot Fest, which is like the last place I would want to see. In general, I don't want to see anyone at a music festival. I want to see them in a small venue, or at least a nice, moderate size.
It can be
thing.
magical. It can be magical, but I agree with you. General.
Yeah, it depends on the type of music. I saw at Lollapalooza years ago. I saw the band Muse, and they were fantastic in that big,
Oh, yeah,
giant
'cause they're like
100,000 people crowd.
They're like a stadium rock
Yeah,
band, you
like
know?
that was perfect. This, no. But also I recently went to see the band Rilo Kiley.
Oh, they're great.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were like my favorite band in like high school. One of my favorite bands in high school. Really got into them in college. They played at the Chicago Theater recently, and it was fantastic. During the show, though, because they had broken up for a while, at one point during the show, their singer Jenny Lewis said, like, "This is actually our first proper show back in Chicago since we played at the Riviera, years ago." And I was like, that couldn't possibly be the Riviera show that I went to when I was in college, could it? And it was, and I felt very old being like, that was more than 18 years ago. So I've been listening to their back catalog. Great stuff. Love them. They're fantastic.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us, Parker, and talking about James Talarico.
Talarico.
And the state
Little
of
bit of
and the state
baseball.
of pride. As pride is more than just a celebration. It's also a time to like take stock of this particular issue and how America is treating it, how America is treating the LGBTQ plus population.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.